Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 41, Euthyphro 6a to b. Euthyphro is explaining to Socrates why he is justified in prosecuting his father, and he points to the precedent set by the gods themselves. We saw last time how Kronos castrated Uranos and overthrew him, and Kronos himself became the leader of the gods. And he had children by his sister Rhea, including Hera, Hestia, Demeter, Poseidon, Hades, and lastly Zeus. However, there was a prophecy that Kronos would be overthrown by one of his children, so whenever a child was born, he would obviously swallow it. Therefore, Rhea gave birth to Zeus, the last one born, secretly, and when he grew up, she encouraged him to overthrow his father and caused him to release the other children by throwing them up. There is an ancient report that Kronos was castrated by his son, but this is now unnecessary. Castration was the reason, I think, for the separation of earth and heaven. It was sufficient now for Zeus simply to bind Kronos and hide him away in the lowest reaches of Tartarus and become the king of the gods himself, which is what the more usual mythology tells us. I'm not going to go into the Babylonian background to the myth. I'm not going to talk about the details. What is important for us is that Euthyphro thinks that these examples justify his prosecution of his own father. Euthyphro says that he's already given this justification to others, and earlier he said that he has been quarrelling with his family. So we may be given to understand that Euthyphro has been arguing with his family about prosecuting his father and has given them this justification. However, I don't think it stops there. A trial in Athens would typically last one day, and the prosecution would give a speech. In other words, the prosecutor himself would give a speech. The defendant would then give a speech. Then there would be another round of smaller speeches and so on, like in Plato's Apology, where we hear the speeches given by Socrates, but not by the prosecution. Euthyphro already knows that his father will use the argument of immorality, irreverence against Euthyphro for prosecuting his father. Therefore, in the same trial, in his prosecution speech, he will have to defend his action. He will have to explain why prosecuting his father is not immoral, not unholy, not irreverent. And it looks like he will use this argument in court. He will explain that he is behaving just like the gods themselves. The judges in the trial will be hundreds of Athenian citizens appointed for one day to hear the trial, and we may imagine that they will find this ridiculous. We've already seen that Euthyphro himself has said that he is regarded as mad when he makes prophecies in the public assembly. Now we know what sort of thing he does. He looks for examples from myth to justify one or other course of action. Is Plato just unfairly trying to make Euthyphro look ridiculous so that Socrates will win an argument? This is a charge commonly made by philosophers against Plato, that he always makes the interlocutors of Socrates look ridiculous, but they're missing the point of the dialogue, or in fact several points. If Euthyphro is being made to look ridiculous so that Socrates can win an argument, the assumption must be that Socrates is supposed to be giving a good argument. And the usual assumption is that Socrates speaks for Plato. So we should expect a philosophical argument in a way in which Euthyphro is being unfairly treated. Is this the case? Is this what happens? Well, we'll see. But we can already say that Euthyphro represents something, Socrates represents something else, and if Euthyphro looks ridiculous, there must be a good reason in the dialogue for him to appear ridiculous. It isn't because Plato wants to have an easy win over an idiot. That's no good. There's no point to that. Plato himself could have just written some sort of essay on whatever subject he wanted without having a straw man to fight against. The main point here is that Euthyphro appears ridiculous to the many, not to Socrates. If Socrates does laugh at Euthyphro, he's having a private joke because there's no one around to think that Socrates is better than Euthyphro or has beaten him in an argument. And in fact, Socrates hasn't been laughing at Euthyphro. He's been talking to him. We don't know why yet, but the many do laugh at Euthyphro and they think he's mad. So the question isn't why Plato wants to have a stupid straw man for Socrates to argue against. This is a confusion between the dramatist, the audience, and the drama itself. The characters in the drama have no idea about Plato or us, the readers. The question we should keep in mind is why the many think that Euthyphro is mad. Is it because he thinks in a way that they don't? Obviously, yes. But in what way does he think differently from them? It would seem from the evidence so far that Euthyphro uses mythology in a way which the many don't. They are aware of mythology, but they don't think that mythology should be brought into discussions in the law courts or in the public assembly. They are not stories to live by. Euthyphro may appear mad, but at least we can understand why he thinks that these examples justify his prosecution of his father. If it's all right for the gods to treat their unjust fathers in the way that they treat them, then what's the problem with Euthyphro prosecuting his father? This is an excellent argument. And Euthyphro makes the very good point that the many believe that Zeus is the most just of the gods. So really, how can they complain? If anyone is being inconsistent here, it's the many, not Euthyphro. He's being very consistent, in fact, far too consistent, we might say. He not only believes that Zeus is the most just of the gods, but he acts upon it. He uses Zeus as a model for justice. And as a bonus, Zeus is a son who is dealing with an unjust father. But do we remember that Euthyphro has given these examples here in answer to the question Socrates asked him, what is the holy, to hosion? And Euthyphro said that what is holy is what he's doing now, prosecuting his father. And then he gave the examples to show just how justified he is in prosecuting his father. The question is, are the gods treating their fathers in that way examples of the holy? With them, Euthyphro talks about justice, but he doesn't talk about the holy. It's only the prosecuting itself in the law court which is holy. Euthyphro makes it clear that any prosecution in the law court to do with the holy is holy. Anything to do with murders, with thefts from temples, and any wrongdoing. This rather contradicts what Euthyphro said about Meletos earlier, who he said was probably doing an injustice to Socrates by prosecuting him. Just as Euthyphro concentrated on his own case, so now Socrates draws attention back to his own case. After all, he's pretending to use Euthyphro as a teacher of the holy to help him with his case. Arageo Euthyphron tutestin hu heneke ten graphen philgo, hotitatoeauta epedantis periton theon lege, dus heros pos apodechomai. So, Euthyphro, is this the reason why I am a defendant in this graphe? Because whenever anyone says such things about the gods, I find it hard to take. Diodehos eoike fecetis me examartanen. Because of this, so it seems, someone will say that I am mistaken. This isn't the reason Socrates is being prosecuted, but it's a clever way to say that he doesn't accept what Euthyphro has been saying about the gods. Nun kai soi tauta sundoke to iu edoti periton toiuton, ananke de hos eoike kai heimin sun choren, tigar kai fesomen, hoige kai autoi homologumen periauton me dene denai. Now then, if you think these things, and you're the one who knows about such things, then it's necessary, so it seems, that I too should agree. For what indeed shall I say, I who confess not to know anything about them? You may have seen T-shirts with the slogan, "All I know is that I know nothing," written on them, and this Socratic declaration of ignorance has become rather firmly established in skeptical Platonism. They seem to think that Socrates himself knew nothing, or at least he thought that he knew nothing, and that that is a good thing. Socrates nowhere says that all he knows is that he knows nothing, and even if he did, that doesn't mean that he knew nothing. He just says things, for a reason, of course, but he just says things. It doesn't reflect what he actually thinks. This is a good example illustrating the way Platonism works. In various dialogues, Socrates says that he doesn't know about friendship, he doesn't know about courage, he doesn't know about any other thing. And if you collect all of these sentences out of context from all of the dialogues, you can make a case for saying that Socrates says that he knows nothing. It's a bad case, but it's a case that can be made. You only have to look elsewhere in each of these dialogues to see that Socrates actually does know things about the various subjects he says he's ignorant of. What Socrates is doing in this case is setting up a clear distinction, black and white distinction, between Euthyphro, who knows, and Socrates, who doesn't know. After all, teachers are the ones who know, and the students are the ones who don't know. We'll see if this is actually the case next time.